I broke free from my toxic family. They publicly shamed me at Easter brunch. I froze their trust fund and claimed the lake house. My name is Andrew. I am 34. Until recently, I believed I had finally built a life on my own terms. I wasn't trying to make a point to my family. I just didn't want to live under constant scrutiny anymore. So I bought a modest house about an hour away, launched a small consulting firm, and slowly stepped away from the constant tension that seemed to surface at every holiday dot. It wasn't that I disliked them, but after years of being labeled the ungrateful son or the difficult nephew, I grew tired of pretending everything was okay. When I moved out, it wasn't dramatic, no arguments, no big announcement, just a quiet decision. I thought that would ease things. It didn't. For the first year or so after I left, the invitations dwindled. I'd sometimes find out about a cousin's wedding or baby shower only after seeing pictures online. Occasionally, my mom would send me a vague last-minute message. If you're free, brunch Sunday. No details, no warmth. It felt more like a formality than a real invitation. Still, I went to a few gatherings. I made small talk, brought thoughtful gifts. But slowly the stares grew colder, the side comments sharper, and the jokes more pointed. It always felt like they saw my distance as betrayal, as if choosing independence meant I thought I was better than them. But I never said that. In fact, I rarely said anything. I just wanted space. Even after moving out, I continued paying into the family trust, something my grandfather set up long ago to support relatives through hard times. He made his fortune in construction and left a significant amount in a managed account. Each family member contributed yearly, so the fund would be available for emergencies like surgeries, job losses, or education. I took that seriously. I kept making my yearly contributions even after I left. No one ever acknowledged it, not a single thank you, but I kept paying because it felt like the right thing to do. Then came this past Easter. Chelsea, one of the few relatives I still got along with, messaged me the week before. Hope you're coming to brunch. I told Aunt Lorraine to save you a seat next to me. I hesitated. I knew how it would go. I'd walk in and the room would go quiet. My mom would give me that tight smile that meant, don't make a scene. Uncle Paul would probably crack a joke about me finally showing up. But Chelsea was different, always kind, always curious about my work, never made me feel like the outcast Dot, so I went. I dressed well, brought a bottle of rose and a bouquet for Aunt Lorraine, who was hosting. The house looked the same, large windows, floral arrangements, and the faint scent of baked ham and cinnamon rolls. Dot, as soon as I walked in, I felt like I'd stepped back into a version of myself I'd tried to leave behind. People were chatting, laughing, passing around deviled eggs and mimosas. Then I saw Aunt Lorraine near the table, pastel cardigan, and a tray of quiche like always. She glanced at me, then walked over. Her eyes dropped to my clothes and back up. She said, just loud enough for others to hear, "This table's for family only." I froze. At first I thought I'd misheard, or that she was joking. But her tone was serious, laced with that sugar-coated condescension I knew too well. I looked to Chelsea, who seemed horrified, then to my mom at the far end of the table. She didn't look at me, just sipped her mimosa and said, "You made your choice when you moved out." I stood there, bouquet in one hand, wine in the other. I let out a soft laugh, not because it was funny, but because I was stunned. It felt like watching a slow-motion crash while realizing you're the one behind the wheel. I didn't say a word. I turned and walked out. I sat in my car, not angry or tearful, just numb. I thought about all the things I could say, all the retorts I could throw their way, but I'd done that before. It never helped Dot, so I sat there, scrolling through my phone, debating whether to drive back to the city or find a quiet place for lunch. Then my phone buzzed. Chelsea, I'm leaving. That was disgusting. Another buzz, her husband. We're with you. Give us a minute. I watched through the windshield as Chelsea whispered something to her mom, then walked out. Her husband followed. A minute later, my cousin James, who'd once thanked me for helping him financially when he launched his business, stood up and left. Then 2 more cousins stopped by dessert. Half the table was empty. I hadn't planned any of this. I didn't have some revenge plan, but seeing who stood up and who didn't made things clear, I realized just how much I'd been quietly investing into that family trust each year, contributing to people who wouldn't even save me a seat. I scrolled to my contacts, opened the app I used to manage contributions, and started drafting an email. That was the turning point, but not the end. By the time I got home, I had 3 voicemails. One from Chelsea, just checking in and reminding me I wasn't alone. One from Daniel, hesitant, but asking if we could talk soon. And one from my mom, her tone flat but cutting. I don't know what kind of performance you thought you were giving, Andrew. You embarrassed your family. This standoff has gone on long enough. Grow up. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and logged into the Family Trust dashboard. Technically, I wasn't just a contributor. When my grandfather passed, he left a clause in his will. The first grandchild to achieve financial independence without using the trust would become a co-administrator. At the time, most of the family brushed it off as eccentric. But I built my business, paid off my loans, and qualified before anyone else. My mom once said it was cute that Grandpa believed in me. What she didn't know was that he had pulled me aside when I was 24 and said, "This trust might save the family someday, but only if the right person watches the vault." I used to think he meant the money. Now I believe he meant the people. I started going through the transaction logs. Dozens of withdrawals, some minor, some excessive. Uncle Paul had taken out money 3 times in 1 year for home repairs, despite earning 6 figures. My sister had pulled $8,000 marked education, even though she hadn't taken a class since leaving her yoga program. Aunt Lorraine? She was reimbursed for a medical hardship that turned out to be liposuction from a Miami spa. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. What I felt was something colder clarity, like watching a dam crack slowly, knowing it's about to collapse. The next morning, I sent a letter to the financial firm managing the trust. I wasn't removing anyone yet, but I placed a freeze on all withdrawals pending a full audit. I cited financial irregularities and requested a compliance review. It was a quiet, procedural move. But for those used to dipping into the fund freely, it was a locked door. The email went out at 9:42 a.m. At 10:17, my phone started buzzing. Mom declined. Uncle Paul declined. Then came the group text. Did you lock the account? I can't access anything. What's happening? I didn't respond. I sent a private message to the firm. Please direct any questions to me or my legal representative. More instructions to follow. By lunch, Aunt Lorraine had sent a mass email titled Inappropriate Overstep. She accused me of being vindictive, unstable, and emotionally erratic. She CC'd half the family and implied legal action. She even wrote, "You were never really part of this family." That line stayed with me. Never part of the family. That was it, wasn't it? The root of everything. I'd always been the one who didn't quite fit in. I didn't go to church every week. I questioned how things were run. I didn't laugh at their jokes when they mocked Chelsea's husband for being vegetarian or teased Daniel for not being. Man enough. I didn't conform, and instead of accepting that, they pushed me away. But here's what they didn't know. The trust wasn't the only thing I had access to. Back when Grandpa was alive, we met for breakfast monthly. He always ordered the same thing: black coffee, eggs medium, dry rye toast. We'd talk business, life, family. One morning, he told me, "That lake house they all love? They don't know it, but it's in your name. I transferred it years ago. Handled through a shell company. Paperwork's solid. I wanted to make sure someone who earned it owned it." I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I pulled the documents, deed, transfers, even a notarized letter from him explaining his decision. The house they'd used for years' barbecues, birthdays, even a cousin's wedding last fall, they never asked. They didn't know. They had to. Until now, I started drafting another email just to my mom. It was short. "Since I'm apparently not part of the family, I assume you won't mind if I exercise my legal right to enforce private ownership of the lake house. You'll find attached a formal notice of restricted access. Effective immediately, all scheduled events are canceled. Locks will be changed Friday. Then I hit send. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the silence in my home. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel defensive. I wasn't reacting. I was making a choice. The phone buzzed again. I let it ring. The real fallout hadn't even begun. It took less than 12 hours for the family group chat to unravel. Chelsea sent me screenshots. First, my mom in all caps. "Who do you think you are?" Then Uncle Paul threatening vague legal action about stealing family property. Aunt Lorraine chimed in, "Your grandfather would be ashamed." That one made me pause, not because it hurt, but because it proved what I'd always suspected. They never really knew him at all. In the end, they clung to the version of him that suited their polished dysfunction, the version they could manage. They never knew the man who once sat across from me at breakfast and said, "Keep your head down, but keep your power close." I said nothing in return. "Not yet," he added. The following morning, I got a voicemail from Daniel. His tone was soft, unsure. "Hey, man? I don't know the full story, but I think they're panicking because they finally realize you're the only one who's ever had any real integrity. Call me if you want to talk." That meant something, especially coming from him. Daniel had always been in the middle, too kind to stand up to his father, too drained to challenge his mother. I didn't hold it against him, but I wasn't going. To shield him from the storm I was about to set off, the first knock came that afternoon. I wasn't surprised to see my mom. She didn't wait for an invitation, just walked into the living room like she still owned the place. "Andrew," she said, holding her purse tightly like it anchored her. "We need to talk." I didn't move. just closed the door behind her and leaned against the frame. "What's there to talk about?" I asked, calm and steady. "This drama," she replied, waving her hand dismissively. "Locking the trust, keeping us out of the lake house. Do you realize how this looks to the rest of the family?" "That's your concern?" I asked. "Appearance? You're behaving like a spoiled child." I laughed under my breath, one soft note of disbelief. "You cut me out of my own family. Let Aunt Lorraine humiliate me in front of everyone. When I walked away, you called it making a scene. Now you're in my home, demanding I keep paying for people who treat me like I'm nothing. And I'm the child?" She didn't answer. She looked like she wanted to speak, but couldn't find the words. "You told me I made my choice when I moved out," I said, voice low but clear. "Well, now this is yours. You don't get to shame me and then expect me to keep footing the bill." Her lips tightened. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't move, not this time. "Not again. This isn't you," she whispered. "You're not cruel." "I'm not," I replied. "But I'm done enabling this." She left silently. That night, Chelsea called. "They're scrambling," she said. "Paul tried to schedule his daughter's graduation at the lake house next weekend. Found out the hard way. It's not available." I smirked. Did he now? And get this, Lorraine called the property manager pretending she was still in charge, practically threatened him. He hung up. I chuckled, not because it was funny, but because it was all so expected. Then she paused. "There's more. They're holding a meeting at Grandma's, trying to corner you into reversing everything. Paul mentioned something about voting you out as trustee." I felt the heat rise slow but steady. "They can try," I said, "but they won't like what comes next." The truth is, I'd been planning this part for weeks ever since Easter. Brunch. At first, it was just a thought. What if I stopped funding the dysfunction? But as I read through the documents, I realized just how much authority Grandpa had given me. It wasn't just administrative power, he'd given me amendment rights. I could revise the trust if I believed it protected its future. It wasn't unlimited, but it was enough. I'd already begun working with a lawyer to restructure the bylaws. But I hadn't filed the changes yet. I was waiting for them to reveal who they really were, to confirm what I already suspected. That, to them, I was just a walking wallet. 2 days later, the email arrived. Subject: special family meeting, attendance expected. No greeting. No explanation. Just a time, a place, and an unspoken expectation that I'd show up and stay quiet while they lectured me on family values. I stared at the message for a while. Then I forwarded it to my lawyer with one line: "They've made their move. Let's make ours." I didn't attend. Instead, at exactly 6 p.m. on Sunday, the time of their meeting, I sent the final amended trust to the family's email list. Attached was a formal letter from my attorney. It was neutral in tone but unambiguous. Subject: notice of trust. Reorganization. Effective immediately. The email read: "Dear family, due to recent concerns about the misuse of trust assets, lack of transparency, and ongoing personal targeting of a co-trustee, the trust has been legally restructured. Effective immediately. All non-contributing beneficiaries are suspended pending financial review. Withdrawals require detailed documentation and board approval. New bylaw. Any beneficiary involved in discrimination, exclusion, or misuse of funds will be permanently removed. Trust administration will now be handled by an independent fiduciary, board and third-party auditor. This is not retaliation. It's a restoration of the trust's purpose. Support, not entitlement. Reach out with any questions respectfully. And then I turned off my phone, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on the porch, listening to birds above the trees. The fallout was immediate and loud. When I turned my phone back on the next morning, I had 47 missed calls, 18 voicemails, and over 100 texts. Most from the usual suspects: Mom, Uncle Paul, Aunt Lorraine, each one a performance. Mom said I had disgraced the family. Paul accused me of acting like a tyrant. Lorraine, in a voice tight with panic, kept repeating, "You don't get to do this." But the truth was I did, legally, ethically, and, maybe for the first time, morally. Chelsea texted, "You just lit a match in a room full of gasoline. I'm proud of you." Daniel wrote, too, "It's messy, but thank you." No one else had the guts. Even Natalie, my cousin who hadn't spoken to me in years, sent an email. I always felt the trust was being abused. Maybe now it can actually help someone. In the weeks that followed, things got quiet. Not because they'd changed, but because they no longer had access to what fed their sense of control, my silence. Without it, they had to face what they'd built. Chelsea told me the family meeting fell apart, raised voices, accusations, even tears. Not from regret, but fear. The realization that the endless gravy train had derailed. Mom didn't speak to me for nearly 2 months, and I didn't chase her. No follow-ups, no apologies. Just silence. A mirror she couldn't look away from. Eventually she called. Not to apologize, not right away. She started with small talk, pretending nothing had happened. But I wouldn't let her deflect. "Why did you let them treat me that way?" I asked. "At brunch, at Christmas, every time I showed up." She paused for a long time. Then finally said, "Because if I defended you, I'd lose them." It hit harder than I expected, not because it was surprising, but because it confirmed what I'd always feared. I'd never been her priority. Keeping the family happy had mattered more than protecting her son. It had always been that way. I was just finally saying it out loud. "I guess you lost me instead," I said. She sighed. "I don't want to." I didn't respond right away. Then I said, "Then stop treating me like I'm disposable." We talked more. She didn't transform overnight. But there was a shift, a quiet one. I think she finally understood what her silence had cost. The trust didn't fall apart. In fact, it thrived. Under new oversight, the waste stopped. We launched scholarships, emergency medical grants, and a startup fund for cousins with business ideas. Everything was documented. Transparent. Daniel was the first to benefit. He started an eco-friendly landscaping business. The trust matched his initial funds under clear terms. He sent me a photo of his first major project, a rooftop garden at an elementary school. His message read, "Thanks for believing in me, and for not letting them destroy it all." Chelsea became the second co-administrator. We added her to the board after she voluntarily disclosed her finances and helped build the new framework. She was smart, fair, and committed to honoring Grandpa's legacy. As for the others, Uncle Paul tried to sue. Didn't get far. Grandpa's legal team had seen this coming. Paul wasted money trying to claw back power. He ended up deeper in debt. Left me a voicemail once. You'll regret this. I played it aloud while Chelsea and I reviewed applications. We laughed. Aunt Lorraine was subtler, cryptic Facebook posts like, "Family should support, not exile." She kept tagging people who had already unfollowed her. Once she tagged me. I blocked her. My sister said nothing, disappeared. Part of me was relieved. Part of me missed the version of her I thought I knew. Mom's trying slowly. I don't pretend it's all fixed. But when she showed up for my birthday dinner this year, on time with a gift and no snide comments, it meant something. The card simply said, "Thank you for making things better, even when I didn't understand." I kept it. The lake house isn't off limits now, but people ask permission, and they respect the answer. We reopened it for reunions invite only. This year, Chelsea and I hosted a summer BBQ. We grilled by the lake, played board games, and watched the kids build sandcastles. Some family didn't show. Others came nervous, unsure. But the ones who stayed late, laughing under the patio lights, those were the ones who never needed a trust fund to remember what family really meant. Sometimes I still sit on the dock, legs swinging above the water, the way I used to with Grandpa. I think about the choices, the silence I broke, the fire I started, and I don't regret any of it, because sometimes the only way to heal a broken legacy is to burn down what's rotten and rebuild from the ash.